Hey guys, so this is my box from Raintree Nursery, and I'm really excited to open it and really not excited to open it because it means I have a lot of trees and shrubs to get in today, but I'm really excited to see which varieties they sent me. I made a list of all the types of plants I wanted, and I kind of left it up to them to pick which ones could cross-pollinate with each other, and I'm really excited. Before I forget, if you want bare root trees, you need to order them now. By the time they hit May, there will not be bare root trees. You will only have pots. Those also work well, but they're a little bit more expensive, and shipping is more expensive because the pots have soil in them and they're heavier. All right, so this is your moisture retention space. This is slightly damp newspaper. And then at the ball, you've probably got sphagnum moss or something around the actual ball, and it will be wet. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the compost so that I can see what I'm working with. Want to unwrap these until I know what they are and where they're going. The reason is these ones are bare roots and they need to stay damp. What I'm going to do is I have this big box here, and I'm going to water the box, and then I'm going to put some potting soil in the bottom and water that, and then I'm going to put the roots of the trees in, and then I'm going to cover that with the potting soil, and then I'm going to water it again. And that buys me time. It means that if, for instance, for whatever emergency reason, I can't get them all planted today, they won't die on me. So one of my favorite things about my property is my living fence. I harvest twigs off of it to feed the rabbits, we harvest it to feed the goats, and we harvest it for biomass to put down in our Back to Eden deep mulch system. But this side has never really thrived. It was the last side that I put in. I was tired, and the slips that I had were not as healthy and good and strong as the ones on my other two sides. Now, I still have water running here, but it's ugly. Until it's really growing in the summer, it's not beautiful. And so we're gonna take this out just on this side, and we're gonna plant our service berries and our other small berries here, because they won't grow as tall and as bushy as the willows. They won't block the sun out. And it's gonna take them a few years to get big enough that they're gonna need to be pruned at all. There's no water lines here. It's just a really good spot for a living fence. And I already, farm life filming, it's so rewarding. So we're gonna take out all the dead wood, and then we're gonna cut down the willows, and we'll probably feed them to the goats. Two eggs out here. Hey ladies. Why does it sound like I have a chicken under a tarp? Okay, so this is one of my trees that I actually need to take out, even though it's doing just fine. One reason is that I planted it right over the water line when I was first planting things in our rock garden. And what it is it's a mulberry, but it is a seedling type of a mulberry. It's not a named cultivar. It's more of a wild crafting type of a tree. If I'm gonna have enough space to grow food for my family, I can't have subpar fruit. So this one is actually gonna have to die. If I just needed to move it and it was an excellent cultivar, I would move it. But it doesn't matter where I move it, it's never going to be something that's gonna feed my family well, and so I need to just take it down. Now, it may look like I have this hole pretty close to the fence and pretty close to what used to be the living fence. And the reason I've done that is that I want to plant intensively. I want things to be closer together because I have a very small space that has really high quality soil and I need to make the most of that. So the way that I kind of get around that later is that I take cuttings, I take seeds, I take seedlings from this plant and I move them to other parts of the property that are not as good. And that way I can guard the health of the parent plants, and then I can just harvest seedlings from around that to move elsewhere. And so that's how I kind of justify keeping everything closer together. If you have more space and you have good soil, by all means, plant them further apart. But this is the way that I make sure they get enough water, they get enough fertilizer, is by planting close to things, knowing that later I'm going to have to trim them. And eventually I may even have to move them, but this is what I have for now. These are service berries. This one is a Thiessen, which is supposed to have the best flavor. And a Smoky, that's also supposed to have good flavor and good for commercial growers. Now, I planted this I dug a hole that was way too deep. So, first, they do have these at Raintree. They have little packets of microrhizae, or it's a kind of a beneficial. It's beneficial for your plant to have this. And I'm actually going to put this in pretty deep so that when I water it, it has a basin. But I'm not going to fill the dirt up to the point where it covers the plant. So you see, I left a pretty good basin for watering. We don't get a lot of rain here, and so I need to make sure that when I have a hose and I'm walking past this, if I feel like they don't have enough water, the water will settle. So I didn't put dirt in up above the root zone, I just planted them deeper. The chickens are going to try and help me by spreading the mulch around. I don't want them to do that. It's actually not helpful. This is my noisy rooster. I put the ducks and the chickens in here because what I really want is I want them to scratch it up. This is where we had the goats during the winter for a little bit, and it's much too rich to be able to plant into right now. So I'm asking the chickens to till this up a little bit. And this will keep them out of the tree so they're not eating the roots. All right, so whenever you plant a fruit tree, you want to protect it, and you can protect it from deer, you can protect it from your own livestock. We're protecting it from ducks and chickens. The chickens will scratch the mulch away from the tree, and the ducks will come in with their beaks and actually eat the roots of the tree. Now, the reason I have the ducks and the chickens back here is that they improve the soil and they keep weeds down. And because of them, I have good bacteria and worms in my soil that will make a better fruit tree. Now, I show you how to make these cages in, I think the next video clip. Now, the next thing you see here are these little garden stakes. I have 1, 2, 3. Now, I don't need these garden stakes in here to make the cage stay up, but what the stakes are for is to hold the supports for the tree. And you can see what they are is they're hoses that are cut and then baling twine put through them. This is an old hose, just an old garden hose. I use my pruners to cut it, and then I'll probably just throw this piece away because it's too short. It's really cold out here. It did freeze last night, so these are a little stiffer. But I'm going to bend that. And then I just take a piece of really nice strong twine. And there you have a wind protection. The reason I use these is because they don't stretch, they don't really, for one thing, they don't rub against the trunk of the tree. If I just use this string, it would rub against the trunk of the tree. This is gonna hold it's gonna hold itself stiff. It's gonna hold itself stiff, and it's very smooth, which means that it will allow the tree to have some give in the wind, but it won't allow it to knock itself over. So I put 3 of these up. They stay very loose, and in a couple years I will take down these down. But this is cheap because most people have old nasty hoses laying around, and if you feed animals, you've got baling twine. So that's what I use these for. And they work really, really well. I don't put these up on all trees unless the tree has quite a span of branches and a small root system. That big span of branches that's kind of wide, like this one, it will catch the wind and it will get blown around. But for some of these, it's just one stick in the ground, and so it doesn't need it. Or some of them, the root system was actually bigger than the canopy was. And so when I packed it in and made it really nice and firm, that dirt is going to hold it well enough. This one just really needed it because it was just one straight up and down root in the ground, and it has quite a large canopy at the top, so it did need it. The other thing that you can use old hoses for, this wasn't going to work because it had a crack in it that went from one side to the other. So this one won't work for this next thing, but when I make my drip lines for my trees, I use old hoses too. If you have trees that need to be watered and you have old hoses, what you do is you cut some of the hoses up and in half. Oh, where's my hole? Okay, my hole's on the underside. See the hole? That's how big the hole has to be in order to let enough water out. But then you put this is just a hose piece that I split down the middle and cut into a small piece. This is a cap that lets a good amount of water out but maintains the pressure for the next spot in line. And that's how always, always, always mark where your trees are and always protect them. Even if you don't have ducks or deer, protect them like this, because when your kids are outside playing, You don't want them to accidentally step on things. You don't want to accidentally step on things. You want to protect them. The other nice thing is that if you have a frost, these cages are very nice, especially in a high wind. You can put your sheet or whatever inside the cage on top of the plant, and the wind won't be able to blow the sheet away. All right, this is some garden fencing. It's not chicken wire. Chicken wire can't support its own weight very well. Now, I have a lot of this because I have used it to keep ducks and chickens around my fruit trees so that they can graze and eat all the weeds out from between my fruit trees. It works very, very well for that. These are my favorite garden stakes because you can step them in. They have a lot of hooks on each side. I use them to hold up the garden fence, but I also use them for electric fencing later. I use them for everything. If I have a really small tree, I'll use this as the 3 stakes that I put around as a wind support. So I leave it long on this side because that way I don't need any hooks or any extra wire. And yes, it has lots of sagebrush and stuff on it, but this one, it's important if you have ducks that it be big enough around that you have lots of space around your plant. It can't be a small one because what the ducks will actually do is they're not interested in the plant. What they want to do is they want to eat the roots at the bottom. So they'll put their little beaks through and under and trying to get to those roots. So I'm just gonna bend that. It helps if you do alternating. Let's see if I can bring it in here so you can see it. All right, so I'm alternating. This one I twisted through here. This one I twisted through here. The next one I'm just going to twist through here. You don't have to have very many that go back and forth to hold it, but you have to have at least a couple. All right. So we got it that way, and then we're going to lift it up and do it this way. And that way when you pick the cage up, everything doesn't just pop off because it was all done in one direction. And there you go. This would also work for tomatoes. And you just need 1 stake. All right, so you see how easy that went on? What it does is it gives something that's too small at the bottom for the ducks' bills to get through easily. And there's an equal amount of space all the way around. If you don't have the stake on, then they can push the cage over. So I've got to watch now and see if that 1 stake is going to be enough. These are my cold hardy kiwis. And I really like having these cages to put over them because when we have a frost, I can just throw a sheet over the top to protect them. One of the reasons you want to do bare root, especially if you're in a cold climate, is that if you do bare root, they haven't leafed out yet. They haven't bloomed. They're dormant. This little guy was sent to me potted because they'd run out of bare root. And it's gonna freeze for the next 2 nights, so I have to cover it. If it wasn't bloomed, if it wasn't leafed out, I wouldn't need to cover it. I have 3 plants that they sent me like that, and all 3 of them need to be very thoroughly covered. For one thing, they came from a much warmer climate. Now they're in a colder climate. They had already leafed out. Now they're here and we're about to freeze. So I'm gonna make sure on this one, I'm probably gonna put a what is it called? A good option would be a wall of water. That would definitely protect them, and I might still do that. But this one is short enough I can just use a milk jug. So I'm going to put a milk jug Sorry about the rooster. I'm gonna put a milk jug over it and then a cloth protector tonight. And I'm gonna look into seeing if I can get my walls of water out too. So this is an elderberry. Elderberry is known for being antiviral as far as medicinal, traditional medicinal purposes it was used for. A lot of people like to make syrup out of elderberries, and I ordered 2. The other one is bare root. This one is bare root. This one was potted. Which one is going to survive the frost? What I wanted to show you, so I had 3 plants that had leafed out, and if they're bare root and they haven't leafed out yet, you don't need to protect them from intense sunlight. But if they have leafed out, you want to protect them from intense sunlight. So I have some old sheets on these guys. The other thing, be careful if you have a hose out in intense sunlight. Test that hose water before you start to water anything. Always have it hit your hand and run for a bit before you water any of your plants, because otherwise it will boil and kill your plants. So these old sheets are just something I use as a frost barrier, and right now they're working as a light barrier. Hey guys, so my rain tree order just showed up, and the first thing I'm going to do is take a nap, because once I open that box up, I don't want to have any of those roots drying out. I need to plant them all at once, and I need to have my wits about me, and it's already, I think, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to take me a long time to get everything planted. I'm going to have to change my clothes. We just had lunch, and so now is a really great time before I open anything up to just get a little bit of a nap. Alright, so I am immune compromised. These kind of activities can be a little bit tricky because they can take hours. So I have all sorts of food in the fridge ready to go because this could take me many hours. It's supposed to be, I think, in the 50s today, which is really high. We have been in the 30s, and I'm just really excited. Maybe it's because I have coffee in front of me, and I'm really anticipating having the energy to do this. The other reason is because I like all the bushes and trees that I ordered, but I didn't order too many. That's another trick. Don't go hog wild thinking that you need to have 3,700 trees. In my opinion, 21 is about the max that I can plant in one day, and it's especially nice if those are bushes instead of big trees. And so, excited to get started. Hurry up, they're gonna assault the door. Honey, she's losing half of her milk. Turn the air hole to the top. What you doing, kitty?